All right, hey guys. So it's my practice presentation for our final presentation. My project's named Digital Installations Through Multiple Mediums. Let's just go ahead and get into it. So as you all know, or anyone who's looked at the previous presentations, I'm looking at media installations and specifically those that are going through multiple mediums, like the title suggests. And these installations are everywhere, and you're just going to see more of them. They're going to be more complex, and they're going to engage consumers and viewers, users, any type of users, further as they go along. Um, and these can be anything from like a screen, a video, to some kind of device that you can get your hands on, or oftentimes a combination of video, sound, touch, um, and through multiple mediums, meaning like multiple screens or multiple projectors all working together to create one experience. And that's kind of what I was looking to get into a little bit and learn a little bit more about as I went through my project. Um, and so, yeah, I think the big pull, which I kind of already touched, is that I have written here combining multiple media forms and delivering them via multiple mediums increases engagement and heightens overall experience. And just the more ways that you can be engaging someone at one time, the more ways that you can be reaching them with whatever media you're creating, then like the further immersed they're going to be, the less distracted they're going to be on other things, and the more you're going to be able to give them the effect that you're looking to give them and they're looking to get from your product. Um, and so here's a video I have for my deliverable. I'll go ahead and say, since this is the practice, that this isn't the video I'm going to use. My remote connection has not worked in the last day and a half, so I don't have my most recent. But here you can see um, this is where a picture frame would be, and then the light gray in the back is where a TV would be. I'm going to mock up all of this for the final. I just haven't done it yet, but my visual is completely done. A couple things that I've worked on to improve this. I've slowed down the particles. They also change over time as they go. So they start with this greenish blue here, and then they change to like a darker blue and some purple and stuff. I've added a container down here that they'll collect in, and then I've messed with the hydrodynamics of the particles so that they act a little bit more like water. And I've added some constraints so that the particles aren't falling like this. This is a pretty old version of what I have. I've done a lot of updates since then, but I can't get through remotely to my PC that I'm working on the project with to record a better screen grab. So this is what we have right now. But yeah, the idea is that the particles will look like they're going around the picture frame, and then off the wall onto the TV, and then back out on the other side. Unfortunately, I'm probably not going to be able to get this final visual completed like I wanted to, and we can talk about that in a second. So a couple technical limitations I had. Notch, which is a program that I'm using, only works on PC. And so I think they're planning on bringing that to Mac at some point, but it's really hard to work on a PC program when you only have a Mac available to you. So I had to use a remote connection, which was very spotty and has not worked very well for me over time. And like it says here, I was unable to reach my project for days at a time. I'm kind of dealing with that at the moment. Um, and then finally, hardware. My 2013 Mac is pretty old, so I need two independent HDMI connections to run a projector and a TV to make my effect work. And this would have totally been done already if I had access to everything that I could have in King. Unfortunately, they're not letting anyone in there, and I can't borrow any of the technology from them. And so all of these together has made the experience pretty tough at times. But I mean, we've got the visual. It's set up for everything that it needs to be. Like it's laid out in the way that it would need to be to get the effect done. So I feel pretty good about what I've accomplished, I think, overall. Um, and so we'll look at a couple potential uses here um, for the software as well as the visual and then my personal experience. Um, so live events, first of all. Um, Notch is already being used by some of the top installation designers and engineers in the world. They're using these for concerts and like car releases and announcements and product announcements, anything like that. Um, they also use them in fashion shows. um, anything where you're having large screens and big animations going on. It's a very visual heavy program, and so people find that they can get things that look really nice for not a ton of effort sometimes, depending on how familiar they are with the program. Also for hydrodynamics, and I kind of mean this from an educational standpoint. While I was working on the particles and the particle system and getting them to flow down the ramp like they were supposed to, I had to deal with things such as viscosity, surface tension, how the gravity plays, how the particles interact with each other. Um, and I think that's something that could really be helpful um, for students trying to learn more about how water interacts with objects and with itself. And you can get in and play around with all the numbers there, and change things so that the particles interact with each other differently. Um, and I think that would be pretty good for students to get their hands on and kind of see firsthand what changing things would do. Then we've got virtual scenes here. So gaming, as I'm sure you all know, is constantly evolving, and it's getting pretty intense. They do a lot of things with big scenes and huge open worlds. Um, and I think being able to use a visual heavy app or application such as Notch can open up more worlds for them or just make things easier for developers. And I know Notch runs specifically on GPU, which is kind of unusual. Most of the time, software systems run on the G or the CPU, and so I'm not sure yet if uh, game companies are capitalizing on this, but they should if they're not, and I'm sure they will soon. And Notch can help kind of segue them into things like that because it's already out there and using the GPU. Um, and finally, for architecture, um, I think architects are always looking for new ways to have their buildings, their designs interact with people within them. And so I think that looking at not just Notch as a program, but specifically using multiple mediums and multiple media types to reach users while they're inside the building experiencing it, I think is something that architects probably already are, but definitely will be in the future doing a little more often. And they'll be trying to really immerse the user in whatever building that they're in. And so all of these are different kind of directions that you could take from this project based on both my specific visual as well as the program itself and just the idea of multimedia installations. And so finally, a little bit about what I've learned. I've learned a lot about Notch. I had no idea what the program was coming in. I've learned a lot of techniques as well as the workflow. And working in a node-based system is a little bit different than any other program that I've used in the past that are usually linear form. And then installations. Learned a lot about installations and how they can engage users, whether that be physically, visually, audibly. Um, some of them even use smell. Um, and so and then there's a lot of different ways that you can specifically do that just digitally through vision, um, and a lot of things that you can do from screen to screen. And when you have the combination of projectors and projection mapping, you can do all kinds of cool things with rooms. I've learned about hydrodynamics because I've had to play around with the particles, but I've already told you a little bit about that. And then finally, I learned a lot about my equipment, and the limitations of equipment specifically because it's kind of been a mess trying to get everything organized and ready to go all in one place. But yeah, I think that pretty much wraps it up. So thank you for listening.